Today's video is sponsored by Factor. Water. It makes up 60% of our biological makeup. It compromises 71% of Earth's total surface area. It is the essence of life. But what if that essence marked us for death, or a fate much worse? What if there existed an organism that existed in a similar state to water that could multiply exponentially if exposed to said water or water-based organisms? Are you asking me, what are you talking about? We saw the thumbnail. We obviously know this is about zombies that are spurred from water. Well, what if this ancient liquid race were to make landfall on Earth from its Martian origins, and how could its conversion of the human race turn out? How fast would we be screwed? Is there any chance of combating it once the raindrops keep falling on our heads? Quick answer, no. Long answer, today we are discussing why you wouldn't survive the flood water zombies of Doctor Who. You might need to escape the waters of Mars, but you don't want to miss out on the gourmet foods of Earth, delivered right to your door with today's sponsor, Factor. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They're ready to heat up and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Are you looking for gourmet meals? Try meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter, broccolini, and asparagus. After slamming down fast food and soda on top of Christmas cuisine back in December, I have been needing to get back on a better diet and to getting working out. Factor's meals help work to those New Year, New Me goals with food that helps meet those protein quotas, especially with how busy I've been trying to get back into making videos regularly. It saves me time with these prepared meals. It helps a ton having ready to go meals right there to slap in the microwave oven or regular oven and be fresh. Do you want to save time and have your palate thanking you? Well, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50WSG to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That is code 50WSG at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Thank you to Factor for sponsoring the video. Over many millennia ago, there existed a race of reptilians known as the Gandorans. To expedite physical labor, combat, and more, this advanced species forced a non-sentient turtle-like species known as Saurians through a forced mechanical evolutionary process, veritably as reptilian cyborgs. Created by the genius scientist Quendril, they were used for their slave labor for a time. Zadur, the daughter of this brilliant mind, had been genetically engineered just like these creatures. She then viewed herself and the mechanical reptiles as superior life forms, based on their higher strength and prowess, but also not needing to rely on a substance known as life drink to stay alive. Zadur, with the aid of these biolizards, seized all of the substance to become absolute ruler of her people, a dictator, until she ultimately ordered the genocide of her original Gandoran race, leaving only her in the Terminator Lizzies to dominate Mars. Although she would eventually die, the cyborgs would continue to exist and develop their own culture, hierarchy, and religion. They would eventually migrate and colonize the planet of Mars for optimal living conditions. Over time, they experienced a long stretch of peace that had been stopped in its tracks due to a massive gravity well that caused many earthquakes and hurricanes across Mars that persisted for over 30 years. The atmosphere and environment of Mars became harsh, as radiation from space also swelled down upon its surface. All of the cyborgs had ignored warnings by a leader known as Lord Isdal. The cyborgs would debate heavily on whether to leave the planet or not. Some would go off-world to go and conquer other planets. Some stayed behind to attempt to salvage their world. Others, like Lord Isdal's followers, would go into cryogenic stasis and await another race to find them to solve Mars's woes. However, an even greater danger emerged. One that would threaten not just their own dwindling numbers, but also the continued existence of most, if not all, known life across the cosmos. And that would be the Flood. No, not that one. This one. a viral breed that laid dormant within a meteor hurtling through space for countless eons before eventually crashing to the surface of Mars around the human Earth year of 800. The space rock oozed out what seemed like simply just water to the naked eye. This rock going through space had water within it. But the flood species was that very liquid, acting like a viral agent that could infect anything that contained water to any degree. The cyborgs, after their desperate numerous struggles, would now have to wage a long and taxing war against what they dubbed the Flood. Wiping out a majority of cyborg life, the cyborgs would eventually be renamed Ice Warriors for how other species viewed their recent history exclusively fighting water and ice, mainly for how they were able to stop the Flood by containing it within glaciers on Mars. While the Ice Warriors would eventually come out victorious despite an extremely high infection and death toll, the surface of Mars had to be sterilized and the soil salted to exterminate any strands of the Flood that remained and remove any liquid that it could inhabit, effectively wiping out any remaining chance of Mars being hospitable for the foreseeable future. The Flood was not destroyed though. The glacier had remained, and even choice encounters led to Ice Warrior chieftains like Hathi to become infected and flee to Earth during the era of Vikings on our world. But even during this infection with the Vikings through the use of a nearby volcano, the encounter with the Flood was quashed. But yet another glacier was created on Earth, encasing the destructive viral species on our world. In the year 2059, the simple use of the glacier's water for cleaning food, unfiltered, was enough to awaken the Flood and start another outbreak that mandated the use of a nuclear warhead just to stop its spread in a tiny location. But it's from here we will slow down the convoluted and far-reaching lore of the Doctor Who universe, because Jesus Christ, researching this was a bitch. Just the original race had this whole repertoire of history, and I'm not going to go into all these 12, 13, 14, 15, I don't know how many doctors there are. Instead, we will go into the Flood themselves. That is the point of the video, and what they are capable of, and what it means when we make a technical second contact by rewinding into our current era. Similar to how Back 4 Blood's devil worms were unleashed in that universe, excavation teams in the Antarctic could protract the liquid from melting glaciers on our little blue ball of a planet. If, or I should say, when the liquid organism is either consumed, used to clean something, or a drop of it gets in the orifice or open wound of an individual, that person's individuality, nay, life, will be submit to the Flood. Any water that is inhabited by this life form can wholly be controlled by it, making it flow in unnatural ways, possibly to flow bodies of water towards the area with the most concentration of life, controlling the water at the molecular level. From the molecular level, the Flood will always be looking for susceptible hosts, infecting anything that water can be absorbed into. So basically anything you can think of, the Flood can infect / lie dormant within. But what does infection mean for those that come into contact with it? Once corruption has begun, a victim will almost immediately begin to convulse and spasm as the waterborne species invades the central nervous system, well, like a flood. The internal system of their body will be converted to produce water almost indefinitely, drying out some parts of the frame, resulting in cracked and dried skin around the mouth to meet this new physiological standard, forcing the hollowing out husk to rely on water to breathe rather than the air itself. While you may assume they need to go to the nearest body of water to survive, because of their constant water production, this is not necessary. They produce so much water within their body, in fact, that they spray it like a geyser from their hands and mouth. They are producing something that they can breathe from their body in high volumes, both in order to keep the host body alive and, more dangerously, to infect anyone they can spray. Meaning, even being within water gun distance of these Aqua Andes is an extreme risk. Any droplet will instantly infect and convert you within a few short minutes or even seconds in some cases. The frames of the water zombies are also excessively resilient. With the strain that the flood puts on the body, the heartbeat and pulse of the body are greatly weakened and make many internal organs obsolete to the overall function of the frame, resulting in the water zombie body being able to withstand tons of damage while still managing to move forward. The aqua conversion therapy has also resulted in overproduction of electric synapses and activity within the human brain, causing the floods infected to be able to produce electromagnetic pulses at any given time to disable electronics within a certain radius, being able to nullify cameras, phones, and anything else that could prove to undermine their goals and infection process. Some of the flood's water zombies do act like the typical zombie, being mindless and using its vector methods to spread the contagion, but some of them can have their new identifier in life be hidden to infiltrate and sabotage non-infected personnel to allow the flood to spread more easily without greater opposition, being intelligent enough to hide their symptoms of corruption by suppressing the cracked skin, water production, and even blue tinting of the eyes long enough to get their individual body's job done, possibly destroying larger arrays of electronics, polluting wide water sources to make infection nearly impossible to healthy individuals to prevent thorough filtration, and more, displaying how this microcosm life form can retain problem-solving and nefarious intelligence. While those that have fully displayed Aquanaut symptoms can no longer speak in their host mind's native tongue, they can still communicate in both a gargled mess of sounds and almost hive mind-like telepathic thoughts to speak with one another, causing the coordination amongst their ranks to be ironclad and indiscernible to us as they plan out strikes and infection plans unbeknownst to us. As they infiltrate us, filtrate our water, and fillet our numbers, the flood's water zombies will also be showing further signs of their destructive and deadly capabilities. The limits that our bodies once imposed on us will be unshackled, allowing the infected to run at inhuman speeds, even enough to run at pace with low-powered rockets and fast-moving vehicles, resulting in them closing great distances between lingering survivors to spray and infect them before they even have a chance to escape. Their vocal cords have also been converted to reach piercingly high decibels, enough to shatter thick glass and ice, rupture the eardrums of anyone nearby, and even resonate through heavy metals to break through barriers and to alert other infected no matter where they may be. The water zombie's converted body is basically alien at this point, most of which there's nothing really human there, and drawing anywhere near them will most likely mean the end of you. With the flood basically being infinite water fountains, one would default to saying that we should just use electricity to disable them and kill them. I've played Pokemon, electric types always beat water types, but that is not the case here. When flood soldiers had been jolted with high voltage, they simply were temporarily disabled before getting up like nothing ever happened. Because remember, their brains have been programmed to produce high volumes of electrical synapses to where electricity itself will simply be converted and simmered down throughout the body. Artillery will of course be effective in taking down individual units, but that is if they haven't already taken over that would use weaponry, or that the weaponry wouldn't have already been sabotaged. That, and they can produce water that could cause jamming in any kind of guns and firearms that might be around. The only consistent method of absolutely destroying them where they cannot come back is through ridiculously high degrees of heat. Scorched earth, if you will. Dropping napalm and nukes on them on the grand scale and going through with flamethrowers may be the only option, and even that would require all infected water sources and life forms to be within a condensed area for this to be effective. The means of infection via the flood is way too virile. If it is not nipped in the bud before its super spreader event, then killing them outright would be nigh impossible. For the Ice Warriors of Mars, they already had their own disasters working semi in their favor. The space radiation that rained down on Mars's surface made it less inhabitable, making it harder for water to remain, all while the Ice Warriors themselves sterilized the planet to dry it up enough to force the flood to retreat and be captured within ice. For them, they had the capabilities to escape their planet after leaving the flood. But we don't have that plan B quite yet. We will need to combat the flood planetside, so our chances are, well, there's no chance. They will most likely infect whoever encounters the iceborne viral species en masse, turning everyone into mindless spraying infected, while some of these infected go covert to get to densely populated areas. While it is possible seawater may not be able to host the flood due to it being saltwater, these infected can simply travel to densely populated areas. They can figure out how to get there. The water zombies were capable of flying a spaceship from Mars to Earth before. Surely they can figure out how to drive a plane or boat using the former intelligence of the person that they infected, infecting anyone that encounters them along the way, while stealthily invading water sources like lakes and municipal water to ensure anyone that uses water just about anywhere will turn within seconds. Any crops, animals, or other food sources that interact with the floodwater will also be tainted. This plausibility would lead to a wide portion of the population turning on a dime rather quickly. Once their plans have been put out, water zombies will crop up all over, while those that did not ingest or bathe in this polluted liquid will simply be confronted by newborn flood soldiers, being sprayed by the constant volumes of water emanating from their hands and mouths. The hive mind of aquanauts screeching and sprinting after their targets and converging on any uninfected people or animals they discover to widen the infected net more and more. The simple means of all water and at some point all non-canned food and liquid that is not properly cooked or filtered can lead to infection and widespread chaos is frightening to say the least. Hell, the outbreak of Doctor Who in 2059 started because one dude washed carrots with tainted flood water. All it takes is one patient zero and it is game over. Remember, it can convert one human body to produce infinite water. Water boomers spraying and praying till they find open bodies of water, and then the fucking water itself bending to the flood's will. If it can control the flow of water, who is to say it can't control the entire body to its whim, causing massive floods, tsunamis, and more? I mean, holy shit, if it can infect the ocean, then we are 1,000,000% screwed.
Hey guys, over here! I'm the ocean now!
Constant torrential downpours, massive tidal waves, and more. Who's to say that through the precipitation process where it creates rain that it can't be a part of the rain above us either, creating kind of an acid flood rain. Creatures drinking from rivers and turning, making every animal, even insects, vectors, spewing the noxious water at will. Everything on Earth basically needs water, and the flood loves its water.
Kids love that water.
A majority of all life will quickly become one with the flood. Those that simply don't drink or eat from tainted sources will simply be hunted down like Invasion of the Body Snatchers on hydrosteroids. Eventually, tidal waves or floods would simply flush out anyone that somehow was surviving long term by cleansing their food and water. Nothing we can do can stop the endless tide of the microbial parasites. We would have to nuke them the second they showed their faces, but even then they have made their influence too wide to stop. We will all fall to the water. And as Deathclock once said, that wraps up this sci-fi existential horror fest of a series I never thought I would cover. I'm sure I got some details wrong and the Doctor Who fanbase will probably invade here, but I had fun researching and hypothesizing anyways. Thanks to my YouTube channel members and Patreon patrons for chipping in to support the channel to be featured on this fancy list here. Thanks to Chago for editing this video together, and thanks again to Factor for supporting us as well, and make sure to use my code 50WSG at checkout for 50% off your first order with free shipping. Until next time, I'm Zach S, aka Wow Such Gaming. Never forget to stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay wow.